Hey guys, can you hear me well? All right, cool. I've been I've been in this room with you guys for about 20 years. I'm very excited to talk about this topic though. Definitely something that's near and dear to my heart right now. As you can see, I'm trying to come at this from perspective of a smaller company for POD, so you can get an idea of how things might be different or the same for us inside of that type of environment. CEO of Bridgeport, we're a Lulu Holdings company, just so you guys are aware. If you can, there's a slide there. All right, so a lot of times when people think about AI, they're looking at it from a perspective of how do I get big things to work better, right? How do I get big sets of orders? How do I make larger things happen? In our company, we're a little different. We try to figure out how to make every single SKU, every single thing work well, because each one of our SKUs is usually one book or right around one book. I'll show you that on the next slide, I believe. Not next slide, but here's a little history of our company. We started in 1947 as a library binder. Probably not many in this room anymore left here. I think R&R is here. Yep. So library binders couldn't ruin anything. They couldn't damage a single book. We had to figure out how to make it so that every book could come through our facility without being damaged. And we've kept that going through the years into everything else we've done. We moved into being an edition binder in 1990s and then into POD in 2004, right? And that's when we started to work very heavily with printing and with one-off book production. Get an idea of what we do. Here's a quick slide of understanding what our process makeup is. We are ultra short run. I call it ultra short because I say short run, people think, a 500. We do an average of 2.4 books per title. So not a very long run that way. We have a lot of different finishing methods, from coil to hardcover to paperback, and there's many more, most of which I don't want to describe because I don't want a lot of you guys to know what we do that way. So, and we are completely on demand. When we look at AI in our organization, I want to give you an understanding, but you do need a roadmap of what's going on, right? I want to tell you what we're working on, so you can see what we're actually doing. I want to give you an idea of what we're exploring, what we're thinking about for right now, and then kind of what's on the horizon, a vision of what we might want to see in the future in our manufacturing facility, right? So what we're working on are things that we've already implemented, and I'll go through those really quickly. First, we started out with the obvious area of development. It's the easiest place to go ahead and implement AI. If you're looking to figure out how to do that, you're going to look at your data and data analysis tools and figure out how to go ahead and implement AI inside of that. I'm not going to really go into the tools that we're using for this, but just so you guys get an idea, there's a lot of data sets out there that you can go deeper into, you can understand better, and you can analyze better just by taking a look at that. We also looked into code review, so taking a look at our actual code. We are lucky enough to not have enterprise systems. We have our own homegrown system, right? We created it initially in 2007. And as you can imagine, our developer who created it in 2007 is no longer with us. So we have no institutional knowledge of what that system completely makes up. So that code review was huge. We had to go through that whole system to understand what are all the intricacies, what are all the inconsistencies, what's all the code that's been deprecated, why is it still there? What does that comment mean? That type of stuff. We had that whole system. We've taken care of that there. So we've also implemented fixes and updates. Fixes and updates obviously can go wrong in AI. I don't know if any of you guys have implemented in your development areas AI, but it's not always a straight line. It's all about iteration when it comes down to that. And then finally, we're honing in on what we have and what we have available and where we can go to make it stronger, smaller, more concise, and better. All right. Second of all, our environment, the area that we're in, our workforce, comes a lot from immigrant communities in our area. So we had to come up with a solution to how to speak to them properly, right? We started out by creating documents that we would pass out after the fact or during, and people would have to read them. And to be honest with you, people don't want to read them. They want to go ahead and just kind of listen to what's going on while it's happening. So we started implementing real-time translation. both in our town halls, which we have quarterly, and on our floor. Our floor, we have earbuds that we have in for certain areas, like our maintenance area, where our second shift head of maintenance actually does not speak a word of English, really. He is German, strongly German language, as well as Russian language. And he speaks to our head of maintenance, who is only an English speaker. So right now they talk to each other using earbuds back and forth, using that on-time, immediate AI translation. We also did that in our town hall. Our town hall, we used to give transcriptions afterwards. People would lose information. They wouldn't know what was being talked about. Communication is really key in an organization, any size organization, small organization especially too. So when it comes down to it, we wanted our people to really hear from us so we could speak to them, right? I'm up in front of somebody speaking to them. It's better for them to look at me and me look at them. And they can understand us that way. I can tell you it's not fraught with problems. Our first time using it, words came up on the screen that were not good. People, exactly what you did there. People were laughing and we're like, what's going on? What does that say? I won't say it here, but it was pretty bad. We turned it off immediately. We had to hone it down, right? So it's not always going to be a pretty journey when it comes down to it, but you'll get there. You'll get there. All right. So also on that same side, we are implementing what everyone really wants in any organization that's manufacturing, which is SOPs, or in any organization at all. We're trying to make our standard operating procedures known, right? You want your information known. You want to have a way to do that, a way to pass that information on. But no one really wants to make them. No one really wants to follow through with it. And a lot of times, the people who are the experts in the areas, especially in a production environment, are not skilled at writing things like this up. So when you ask them to do it, they take hours of time, and they can be very difficult for them to do. So what we've done is we're trying to implement a plan that is helping them to get it into a file itself that they do not have to write up themselves. So they can speak to it naturally. Much like Addie said, they just go ahead and freeform speak into it, and it will translate it into a document for us that's in our standard format. All right. What that means is we can update it regularly, which is important for a standing operating procedure, especially in a one-off environment. What that also helps with is training delivery. And this is where we now have documents we can put into a program like Notebook LM. And we can give to people who are new coming into our organization and offer them the ability to understand certain facets of what their job might be and go ahead and ask the program itself. So one of the cool features, although not the best, it is kind of AI sounding. There's a podcast feature, right? You can put it in there and it can give you a rundown podcast. It's about 30 minutes long, and it can teach you about this, or, kind of like a back and forth. They all sound the same. They're very run of the mill. They're not something you'd listen to for fun, but you can go ahead and kind of raise your hand. You click on a button, it says raise your hand, and it allows you to ask a question specific to that information, which is a good feature when you're having training for people. You still need a people oversight. You still need people there to help them as well, but it gives you the other layer that you can go ahead and help the train with. Now, what are we exploring? We're exploring institutional memory. I know that was brought up a little bit. We're trying to understand how we can go ahead and capture that institutional memory in a way that is going to help the people that are there now, not make them worry about, are they going to be here because we're trying to get rid of them, but help the people that are there now have a place that, as our aging population is potentially aging out of the areas they're in, have a way for us to keep that knowledge in our company so that we're not losing it. We've been around for over 75 years. There's a lot of institutional knowledge in our company of how to do a one-off book, and we don't want that to go anywhere. We need to understand when we're having books flow through our system, when they're really small groups of them, where they're going and how they're working and what's causing us a problem, with that project completion. So if you have a set of 50,000 books, what's running through your operation a little bit better than we might when we have 50,000 single books coming through our operation. So we need to know, is there something going wrong? Where is it going wrong? So we're trying to help to identify that problem. And lastly on this, we have analysis tooling. So in other words, we're looking to find a way to analyze the data of our reprints, our rejects, our problematic books to know where they're coming from. If you're not familiar with lean manufacturing, we do a lot of OEEs, right? We try to figure out operation analysis on our machinery. We're trying to do that also in the processes that are not machine related, because we have a lot of them in our workforce right now. And what's on the horizon? So this is probably the most fun thing to talk about because there's not there yet. I can definitely dream a little bit. So it's nice to be able to do. One of the things we're looking to do, because we have so many one-off books, is identify on site. We've tried for years to put into practice RFID tagging in our facility. We try to figure out how to do it with a one-off book. It is nearly impossible to put a label on any number of books like that and have it work in an environment where every single one needs a separate label. So we're trying to see and look into technology that can go ahead and visually see what's going through the factory. And we believe that it's coming through. If you're not familiar with a show called Automate, there's some things like that are there. Take a look at it. It's in Chicago, I believe, this year. But definitely where we've learned some of these things are happening. Again, tracking without tagging, the same idea. What we'd be looking to do is what's called in lean manufacturing quality at the source. So in other words, having that tracked or sourced at the end of a machine, looked visually, understood. Again, not necessarily a topic for a larger machinery can potentially do that. When you're talking one-off books, it's a lot more difficult of a process because there's a lot of different transfer points and a lot of different movements that are coming through your facility. And then finally, defect detection, right? We're trying to figure out a way to look and view a book as it's coming through at that machine to go ahead and guarantee that the product itself is correct and can go through the whole process. Because once you hit the last process, it's too late. Okay, those are all the areas that we're looking at how to make work in our factory. And just to kind of sum up, we're not looking to replace humans. A lot of our processes are not easily replaceable by machinery yet, right? We have a lot of manual processes. We understand that. So what we're trying to do is elevate human work. We're not trying to eliminate it. We're looking to compound our knowledge. We're looking to really understand what we know and how to implement it quickly, or how we can go ahead and remember something, when we need to remember it, and then actually reference it properly. And then we're looking to go ahead and exponentially increase the output of people, just like everyone in this room is probably trying to do. We're trying to figure out how we can leverage people to be better at what we do, so we can serve our customers better, so that we can serve this environment better. And that is pretty much where we're at. So I'll be here for questions afterwards, and Christian's going to go ahead and take it up.
All right, thanks, John. All right. Okay, wait 1 second. All right, thanks for being so open and sharing, John. I think it's always valuable after the first two speakers to be able to hear what different companies are doing actually in action and kind of putting this to use. So I'm Christian Schamberger, CTO, Lakeside Book, and General Manager of Marquee Book. And at Lakeside and Marquee and just the Lakeside platform, our focus has really been on how do we use AI to improve our workflows, to deliver value, to increase operational efficiency, support our employees, and ultimately to serve our customers better. So before I get into that, and it's tough to see, sorry about that. This is a slide that I wanted to show about Lakeside and our locations across North America. So unlike John, we are a little bit more complex as an organization. I say that from the standpoint of we have a lot of different operations and factories and equipment and a very diverse, complex tech stack with a lot of legacy written code and about 6,000 employees. And so when we look at AI as a platform, we're looking at how can we utilize AI to simplify and to standardize really what we do day in and day out. So with that said, how do we address AI and where are we focusing our efforts at Lakeside? And in doing this, we kind of take it from sorry about that. from an approach from the standpoint of really trying to take a look at it through four different lenses. And this is what they are really. First is narrow possibilities strategically. I think we heard it at the first two speaking sessions today. The possibilities are infinite. There are so many different areas that we can use AI to attack within our businesses, whether that's personal productivity from an email standpoint, from note taking, from all of those different tools that we were just taken through. But it's easily to get overwhelmed and to really to lose focus from that. And the thing that we're trying to approach it is we're not trying to boil the ocean. So we're going to resist the urge to apply AI everywhere and instead focus on a small number of really high impact initiatives that are going to drive value and drive value relatively quickly. Second, we're going to approach it, and we heard a little bit about this actually with the first speaker today, is kind of reimagine our workflows across the organization. You know, we want to go into the process and really look at everything is up for grabs. You know, just because we do something the way we do it today, if we apply AI to it, may make it a faster, inefficient process per se. It's really reimagining the workflows. So we're going in and mapping existing workflows to identify inefficiencies, then rebuild those processes with AI at the center and focus on improving speed, operational efficiencies, reducing wasted effort, and really driving ultimately just better outcomes. Third, and in my mind, this is the most important, we need to engage those that are closest to the process. So the technology group doesn't necessarily know the best way to approach this or how to apply AI. The executives within the company don't necessarily know the best way to apply AI. It's going to be the front line employees and the domain experts early. So they understand what they do day in and day out. They understand the challenges they have day in and day out. And you really need to tap into that. And you want to get their buy-in as you develop these changes and these agentic solutions, because you've got the whole change management aspect of this that really needs to be embraced as well. And then number four, you want to measure what matters. Just to apply AI because it's cool and it's what everybody's talking about is a quick way to waste money and to throw away tokens and to cost the business a lot of money. So you really want to be able to, as you're looking at what to employ here, to define success using specific business outcomes. You want to track those metrics that are tied to performance, whether it's speed, quality, efficiency, and conversion. And then compare the AI-enabled results to previous approaches and do pilots. And don't be afraid to stop it or to say it's not working, it's not proving the value. Start over, set it aside, move on to the next. So I wanted to take you through just 6 different areas that are live that we're working on within the Lakeside platform right now. The first is the Data and AI Foundation. We heard earlier in the day the importance of data. So when you look across our platform and our locations and our tech stack, we've got data that is fragmented everywhere, and it's a challenge. It's not easy for us to access. We've got a ton of data, a ton of historical data throughout the years, but it's just not easy to access. So AI needs data, and I think that we all know that, and it's clear. So we need to be able to have a standard enterprise data foundation, a single layer, whether it's through a BigQuery or a Snowflake or a Microsoft Fabric, to be able to get out there and have a clean way to access that data. A second project that we're working on is an S&OP data transformation. We're working in 2 multiple fronts here. One is called connected decisions. Another one is demand forecasting. And it's how can we utilize AI within the S&OP process? Understands some of that tribal knowledge that our S&OP team has to put it into a language model and to make decisions. How do we equip sales to know exactly what they should be targeting, where they should be going after, and to predict exactly what that value should be? At the same time, how do we equip our planning teams to know exactly the most efficient way to meet our customers' due dates as well as to produce that? And then how can we move that work across our platform as well? And so that's the whole S&OP data transformation side. Customer service automation. For all of those that have customer service, which I think is pretty much each and every one in this room, for us and for a lot of printers I know out there and producers, it's just a very manual order entry process. And so how can we take customer POs, customer Excel files, customer Word documents, customer Google Docs, customer emails, and utilize AI to get those into our ERP system and remove the manual data entry out of what customer service does day in and day out, and let them focus on what they should be doing, and that's customer service. Number four, we've implemented AI in HR, and we've got a bunch of projects going on now. We talked about the translation services, and in one of our facilities, we have 16 different languages that are spoken. And we're not talking Spanish and French, we're talking some unique languages. AI is a game changer for the ability to really translate, whether it's job instructions, work instructions, live translations, whatever it may be, and communication is extremely important. Along with that, when you implement AI into HR, it's a great way to get your employee base comfortable and familiar with it. Everybody's got HR manuals. We've got standard operating procedures. We've got knowledge bases. We've got benefits. So there's a lot of ways that you can really utilize AI in that platform. AI and estimating, much like customer service, it's been a very manual process for us. Data entry, manually typing in, taking email and quote requests that we get from customers. So we've been looking at and exploring and starting to go down the route of developing AI estimating tools where we can streamline the process, automate the process, remove the data, manual data entry to look at dynamic pricing and just different tools here with AI and estimating. And then Johnny talked about this AI in software development. This is a no-brainer. This is anybody out there that does programming or development. This is what so much of the, you hear the term vibe coding, but for a company such as Lakeside, where we've got a lot of legacy code, some of the code is 18, 19, 20 years old. What Claude has done in their partnerships with IBM to be able to breathe fresh life in, to be able to program, to reinvent, to update that code as well, is really a game changer here. So for us, it adds speed. It adds a new fresh, it adds a new lease on life for some of this legacy software. So I would encourage everybody to be looking at it from a software development standpoint. All that to say, I really, the first talk this morning about security really hit home for us. And I think it's important that as we all sit in this room and we think about all these different projects that we can be working on or ways to implement AI, security has to be at the forefront for each and every one of us as we do it. Make sure that, we have a process at Lakeside that every tool that we're going to use, and there's hundreds of different AI tools. And I'm a big believer that not one is going to fit them all. Claude's may be better at coding. You may use GitHub Copilot for one thing. You may use WhisperFlow for voice dictation or Granola for notes, transactions, or whatnot. You want to make sure that you control the security with it, because if you don't control it, if you don't have a policy, it's being used out there and it's just being fed in a very insecure manner out to train all of these models. So I know we wanted to take a lot of time for questions and conversations, so I will stop with that. Thank you.
You guys had some similarities in what you're presenting and what you're doing. What's the one or maybe a couple things? If you said do one thing, is that the software coding, or if you're not starting anywhere, where would you say start here for sure?
I mean, it's gonna be based on your business for sure. But if you're looking for a place that's probably the most used out there, is the coding area. Would make sure to let you guys know security, definitely listen to what was talked about today. But you're you're not necessarily, if you don't have a huge development team, you're not looking to get rid of your development team. You want them to work with us, right? It is about helping them to understand things that are there that they might not have understood. Right. But that is a low hanging fruit, in my opinion. It is the easiest thing for us to go ahead and say, yeah, that's where we're going to put some money.
And I would agree with that. The only other thing I would ask back or add to that is that just even utilizing just an LLM that your company's approved of to get everybody familiar with it and those personal productivity gains, I think is a great way to ease into it as well. The software development side of it has huge wins in terms of efficiency and what you can do. We've seen are seeing about a 3 to 4x return on that in terms of capability and what we can generate versus that just one person can. So it's, that there's just huge advantages to that.
And just to give an example, if you use Claude, okay? I was joking with the board yesterday during our board meeting. Me and my buddy Claude do a lot of work together. But you can put it into plan mode and then start talking. And that way it's, if you tell it, hey, we're going into plan mode, I think it's /plan, it won't do anything yet. So you're just saying, hey, we're just having a conversation here and I'm going to ask you questions and tell it, ask me questions. What haven't I told you that will help you be able to solve this query, this problem that we're looking to address? Maybe it's code, maybe it's not, maybe it's, just your workflow, whatever, but you put it in plan mode and have that conversation with it before it does anything.
I think Matt brings up a really good point there. You're not necessarily trying to have it be creative for you. It can't be. It's an LLM. It's not creative by nature. You want it to help you be creative. Have it ask you those questions. Have it really delve into what you want so that it can create a better model for you. That's definitely a really good point, Matt. Thanks.
Christian, with all your different locations, different languages around the world, do you see the AI actually getting every plant, the printing plant, on the same system, the same workflows, or will each plant have some autonomous and do things different?
Yes. So, yes, standardize and simplify is just kind of the verbiage that we're using for, we will standardize throughout the factories or through our operations software. Within that, there needs to be flexibility within the software to be able to, because each operation has different capabilities and equipment and employees. And so there needs to be a level of flexibility built within the software. So that's, yes.
AI and all of that efficiency. Among the 10, one, how similar are shit to each other? Feels like you can package this and maybe put others in your,
How long did it take? We started to really go heavily into it, I would say March 2025. So a little bit over a year now. I think we really pushed heavily into what it can do for us across the organization. But I would say the gains in AI software and AI has been enormous in the last 6 months, and I would expect it to exponentially improve again. So what you're looking at is an exponential speed up of that whole process anyway, right? So what we really stress, and I think Christian brought up a good thought, is getting yourself involved is important. You really want to get yourself doing something daily. You want to get yourself doing something that can get you to understand what the process is like. So you can't necessarily take that into account with when you're talking about implementation, but when you decide to implement, I would suggest that you stick with, simplify. You want to stick with one tool, move forward with it, have a set goal in mind and a set time frame. I think Addie brought that up. That paperwork that she gave you guys is a really good framework to understand how you might want to have one of these projects happen, right? And you're going to set the time frame on that. You're probably going to be wrong. Might be wrong too because it takes longer. You might be wrong because it takes too short of a time. But be ready for that.
Yeah, from our standpoint, it's actually relatively new to the Lakeside platform in terms of diving in from a governance and platform standpoint for AI. So we have set up within the organization a governance process as well as a team that we call the AI Foundry. And they are, in essence, SMEs or subject matter experts that we are equipping and training and sending for, FDE training at Microsoft and Anthropic and whatnot to really equip and to become the subject matter experts within. And it's really enabling us, along with some partners that we have, to really expedite the process and go after it. So it's a relatively new journey for us, but it's moving at light speed. And really, it's incredible to see somebody sit down and vibe code and create for example, a dynamic pricing model, within the matter of 4 hours, tied into the data and whatnot. So I say all that to be encouraging out there that you get the government in place, you set up the process, you bring on either people or you train them, partner with somebody, and it can move really, really quick.
Christian, a piggyback question. So what are the disciplines of the members of your AI Foundry within Lakeside? Is it just technology? Is it operations? Is it executives? If you could just give us a splash of who that is.
Yeah, so it's run through the technology group is the head of that team, but in essence, it's a diverse background. So we're bringing people out of the technology group that may have a programming background. We're bringing people out of operations that have had an interest and are capable of really stepping out above the rest, because some people it comes very natural to. They have a natural curiosity and they're again subject matter experts at what they do as well. So we've got somebody out of finance, we've got somebody out of operations, we've got 2 people out of S&OP, we've got programmers. So it's diverse, and I would encourage, we're somewhat unique because we have a large base to pull from, and it was just really trying to find and having those people come forward for us and organizing them and then equipping them and putting them in a direction.
So do you distinguish between AI and machine learning? And then by extension of that, have you done any projects with machine learning? And then the next subsegment would be like a virtual twin.
I know about machine learning and I know what virtual twins are. We haven't implemented it in our factory. We've really tried to get, like I said, the gains that we're looking at here first. You can look at things like in lean manufacturing, Six Sigma to get you much, much closer to perfect. But we really see that AI can bring us to better quickly. As Christian said, you can get something created in 4 or 5 hours potentially. That can get you to another level where your productivity from that individual or that group is now, exponentially better than it was. So that's kind of what we focused on. It's definitely not a bad thing for an organization that has a good understanding already of AI to continue moving further or creating your own models, even if you want to do that type of thing. But yeah, that's kind of where we've stayed.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. Now we partnered with individuals that are going down that route, I would say, but right now that's been about it.
Thanks, guys. Very enlightening. We have a similar at RPI, been pretty heavy into this for the last year or two. An interesting thing has happened, and kind of curious as to how much pushback you've seen, especially in operations. We've actually had people that said they didn't want to give up the information because they thought giving it to AI would work them out of a job. So there is a fair amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and just kind of wondering if you've seen that, how you address it. People are worried for their jobs. We saw a really interesting transition with developers. They were kind of clandestinely using it. And then when we started hitting our milestones or beating them, it became very apparent. But how are you seeing it throughout the organization? What's the feeling and the concern?
I think that's all about trust in your organization, building trust first. You have to have that trust with your employees, to know that you're working with them. So I think that's the first understanding you have to have. That's built by, years of creating your work community. I mean, we're different than Christian. I'm sure he's going to have a very different answer because of how many facilities he's got to work on that with. But in our facility, that's something we've really worked on. So when we ask people to go ahead and put their time and effort into it, because we have a lean program in our facility already, where there's sharing knowledge happening as it goes on, and it's been a very flat situation when they're in those groups, we've had less trouble with that. So people are willing to share that information with us. They're willing to give it to us. They understand that we're going to use it for their benefit and the benefit of our customers and the rest of the community. So I would say that's the biggest thing you have to get over without any problem.
So from us, yeah, absolutely. We've run up against people that think it's, I'll just say it, of the devil, and that it's going to be the end of the world as we know it versus people that are very excited about it. But I think communication is extremely important when it comes to that and letting people know and make sure that they're aligned and at least knowing where we're headed and why we're doing it. And then having almost an open door policy with people being able to reach out. I've gotten a number of emails and about just concerns that we've been able to respond to and address. And that open communication has gone a long way, as well as then with the approach that we've been taking of involving, the employees, the boots on the ground that have these challenges and let them be a part of the solution, as well as that AI Foundry team that we put together that just covers a lot of different areas within the organization. It's not happening in a bubble, from that standpoint. So it's a lot of it just comes down to communication. But yeah, we do see that. Can I ask a question, Matt?
Go
So
ahead.
by show of hands, how many of your companies are utilizing AI in a manner right now? That's great. Anybody doing it beyond just the standard, is everybody using customer or company approved tools right now? Or is there a lot of shadow AI usage going on? A lot of shadow? Show of hands, anybody?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And so again, if you guys could leave with anything from this, utilize company approved tools or push your companies to go down that route because there is tremendous risk otherwise.
So Tom beat me as he always does to the punch. So piggybacking off his question, this is more on the Lakeside position just because of the breadth of your company. How much, when you went through the Foundry team, I didn't hear HR, human resources in that mix. I'm sure there probably is. But how much of a role at Lakeside specifically, based on the diversity of your organization and your channels of manufacturing, does HR play a role in making sure that it's not only the trust, right? It's at the end of the world, human resource allocation, or reallocation.
Mhm.
What part did HR play, if any, in your organization?
So it's playing and will play an even bigger role as we move forward. So the way that we do it with our AI Foundry is we go on site and we do working sessions on it. And the goal is to walk out of there with defined the route that we're going to go to solve the challenges. It was very intentional for us. The first working session this team did was an HR session. And it was to really to engage them and to understand that if we can, one, make it visible to the company, there's going to be a little bit more comfort level, and two, to really partner with HR on it from a change management standpoint, because employees are key to everything we do day in and day out. And if they're not on board with this, we're going to have challenges and issues moving forward. And so it's really trying to partner with HR to make sure that we can partner with the employees and be good stewards for that standpoint.
You talked a bit about data underlying the AI models, and Lakeside in particular talked about how there's lots of different systems, and maybe the same is true at Bridgeport. How do you go about approaching for the cleanliness of the data, that it's usable, as well as connecting the data systems together?
The cleanliness of the data, we have our data in regular SQL databases, for the most part. It's relatively clean that way. When you start feeding it other documents, you have to start worrying about what's going in there, how it's going in, and how it's going to be viewed. But it's relatively simple to connect a Claude Code instance to a SQL database. 10 minutes. You can get into there and start analyzing your tables, analyzing your data, have it completely understand what's going on, and then start having someone really look into it. So, but that said, your LLM, your AI is only as good as the data you're letting it see. And I think that's been brought up a few different times here, regardless of whether that's in your coding database, your MIS system, or in your other types of data. You want to make sure that that's available to it.
And then I'm the opposite, right? So I wish I had a clean SQL one database to be able to use
Correct.
and connect in 10 minutes. So for us, it was really, it's that enterprise data foundation and utilizing a software like a Snowflake that really enables that. Now, just like any AI, token-based software, Snowflake, for those of you that are aware of it, it charges by the minute for accessing your data. So many of these tools are free to use or get into, but it really comes down to that usage that you want to control. So for us, then it's how often are we going to query that data? Who are we going to give access to it? Because you got to make sure your data is clean, to your point. So it's got to be a very controlled. And for us, we've got a director of AI and BI, or artificial and business intelligence, and that data resides under his control in essence, because we really need to do that. So we needed to have a gatekeeper for in and out with that data, and somebody responsible for organizing and controlling that.
So Christian, from a sales perspective, did you look at data from wins and losses or particular books or markets? And how did that then translate into getting it to the sales team to say, this is the road you want to go down, stay off the broken path?
So we're not there yet. I will say, but all of that is easily, accessible, and to be able to go down that route, especially for those that have a CRM with AI already built in, like HubSpot or Salesforce or any of that. But again, it's having all that data and then taking it and making it usable. So I would say from that standpoint that the sky's the limit. As long as you have the data, you should be able to generate reporting on all of the wins, losses, opportunities, reasons that you may have not won or why you did. As long as you're capturing that data, it should be easy.
We're not doing that
I
yet.
don't
So,
even know.
but yeah, I would say that's, in theory, that sounds like the right way to go about it. I mean, data is available, making sure that it's available to what you're looking to do, and making sure you give it good prompting so that it knows what it's looking for, making sure it has a good skill written, whatever it is you're using, is the most important part.
What about training? These things are changing so fast, the new models, the capabilities. How do you keep everybody trained on how to use whatever it is you want them to use?
We have a small team. It's relatively, again, like why we're up here together is I'm a small side of things. Christian's the larger side of things. We have a small team. We talk regularly about what we're looking to do and implement. We have about 5 to 6 people from various different areas of the business. From development to sales to customer service. So, we talk to each other about that. We make sure that we're up. We know what we're trying to use.
And then from our standpoint, we've got a couple different paths. Right now, we do lunch and learns for the software development side. And we've got our first hackathon that'll be coming up in the fall. Going after it, we send people from our foundry and what we consider a subject matter or SMEs to training. In addition, we're in the process of setting up and partnering with HR on it, our AI Academy, our Lakeside AI Academy. And from there, we're utilizing parts of Anthropic Academy, Copilot Academy, as well as some of the other learning softwares that we have, and doing that based on roles. So if you're a customer service rep, here's what your training can be. If you're a developer, here's what it's going to be, so on and so forth. So pass. So, and it's changing. Tools we're using now, I have no doubt they'll be outdated within 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's just really getting people comfortable with continuous learning and the pace of change.
Actually, what are you doing for your hackathon? Because that sounds interesting. That sounds really cool, like a really cool idea. Is it writing applications? Is it coming up with ideas? What are you doing for that?
So it's going to be, in essence, they're going to come with a couple of different problems and everybody get in a team and then try to generate some vibe coding for it.
So it's sort of like a lean task force type group. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for peeling back the curtain and letting us know how you're using it. Appreciate it.